good morning, and good afternoon to in-house counsel and in-house legal professionals from all across North America and the world. Welcome to In-House Connect. My name is Shai Mahani. I'm the CEO and co-founder of In-House Connect, and I'm thrilled to have you here with us today. Thank you for spending your time with us. A special thanks to our wonderful sponsor, GCAI, and our fantastic presenter today, Cecilia Ziniti, who's going to talk about AI prompting for in-house counsel. She's going to give us practical prompting tips, tricks, and use cases for in-house counsel. This is one of the most signed up webinars we've had this year for sure, even though it's quite early, but it's impressive how many people are interested in learning prompting skills. So let us know, is this your first IHC webinar, or have you tuned into an IHC webinar before? All right, let's get to today's event, AI prompting for in-house counsel, practical prompting tips, tricks, and use cases. Our wonderful presenter is Cecilia Ziniti. She is the founder and CEO of a legal AI company called GCAI, which she built based on her experience as a three-time general counsel and AI expert. For 2 decades, she has driven product and company success across major tech shifts and turned early technologies into iconic products that millions of people use every day. As a 3-time executive team member for venture-backed tech companies, including software unicorn Replit, Cecilia has led all aspects of operations for hypergrowth. She has architected and closed partnerships with blue chips companies like Google and Amazon, and quarterbacked $300+ million in venture capital rounds from top tier investors. She was also a founding lawyer on the Amazon Alexa team and an early team member at Cruise. She understands tech adoption and how to earn public and regulator trust. And she is a very well sought after speaker and presenter on CNN and NPR and IHC, obviously. So that might be the biggest one, but who knows? We're not counting. It's not that competitive. She's clearly an expert in all things AI for in-house counsel and in-house legal teams. And I'm thrilled to learn from her as my first personal AI prompting class. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Cecilia to get us started.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shai. And thank you to the in-house community for hosting me. I'm so excited to dive in. We did a very similar webinar almost a year ago, back in June, and things have evolved like crazy. AI is at a tipping point. So I'm so excited to be here with you all. I've taught at this point lots and lots of folks in classes and just cannot wait to dive in. So this is not your average webinar, although to be fair, none of Shai's webinars are average. But we're going to actually get in and do the thing, right? So most webinars, it's like you're trying to clean your pen cup or, eat your desk salad. That's cool. But if you can put your desk salad to the side and actually get in there and prompt, I guarantee you will learn more and have more fun. So for me, a couple things to know. I have just a tiny spot of ADD. That's okay. It shows up as high performance in women. The other thing that it means is if you're by chance willing to turn cameras on, it makes it slightly less uncanny for me. All right, let's dive in. Okay, we're going to start with a poll. Like Shai said, like the interaction, that's what makes this fun. So how much are you using AI for legal work today? Never, weekly, daily, or hourly? Wow, look at this chart come in. This is like the little ticker symbol. It's like it's just like it feels like checking a stock ticker. I'm so into this. This is amazing. Look at this, at how many folks are at weekly. That is the majority that I'm seeing. So wow, I absolutely love this. Okay, good stuff. All right, so it looks like we are actually real time climbing up the adoption curve. I cannot wait to show this to you. All right, and then another poll, does your legal team, I guess we have to end the first poll, have a goal to use AI in 2025? Yes, we've talked about it, or no? Let's see, look at this, 60% is yes. Amazing, folks. Well, you are in the right place. So excited. Okay, well, one super fun thing is I mentioned back in June, over half of the folks on this call had not ever used AI and for legal work. And now these numbers flipped. So this is literally real time. If we look at poll 1, it looks like we are real time climbing this curve. So this curve is from a famous book called Crossing the Chasm, about the adoption of technology. And something that's really made me proud of our profession is how much lawyers are embracing this. Right? Like we saw initial knee jerk, ChatGPT comes out and people are like, oh my God, let's ban it. But what we've seen, especially in-house, is that clients are demanding this. We've even got Chief Justice Roberts out there saying that legal work will soon be unimaginable without AI. So what we're seeing is literally that you all on this call, folks who are using AI, you are like representing where things are going, right? But like this is actually reaching our profession in this fascinating way. And taking a little bit of skills from today will actually put you, ahead, literally ahead of the curve. So good work, so excited. Also, I'm just so touched at the results here, basically, where essentially you can see that we have literally real time gone from most people hadn't used it to now it looks like a majority of us have. If you're in the folks that haven't, absolutely no worries, you're in the right place. This is my most fun thing, is when I get to help people have that like jaw-dropping moment of like, oh my gosh, like this is something that my team can use and that I can use to be happier, better lawyer, etc. All right, so a little bit about today. We're going to go over some prompting techniques, and then quite literally, I want you all to get in there and prompt during this webinar. Then we're going to do some Q&A. Okay, so a metaphor that I use is that giving an elite lawyer AI is like giving a trained marathon runner a bicycle, right? Like you already are fast. Those of us who are, all of you on legal teams, my guess is your love language is words, right? Like my spouse, he's really good at PowerPoint. Other people are super into Excel. Like I'm not good at those things, but from being a lawyer and using my torts book as a monitorizer, like we have read a lot of words. So AI, and particularly generative AI, is really good for us. So the way to actually, if you give a marathon runner a bicycle, they're like, hey, I'm really fast already. But those of you, if you have ever taught a kid to ride a bike, how do you do it? You don't necessarily read books about bikes. Maybe you watch YouTube videos, but the way to physically do it is to get on the bike. And so that's my encouragement to you. Even if you're having your desk salad or your whatever, like you're kind of multitasking, fine. Please try and interact. I guarantee you will have more fun and you will learn more. All right, so let's dive in. Basically, I have arranged for a free trial for you all. So if you go to getgc.ai/IHC, you can sign up for a free trial. You can use any AI you want. If you want to use ChatGPT or Anthropic or whatever, that's fine. Your results will not be as good. And I can kind of show you why. I'm super passionate about it. But when I think about, okay, if you want to have a great experience riding a bike, you want kind of a nice one, right? You don't want to like, you go to the bike rental place and get the one with like the messed up wheel or whatever. By the way, if you're concerned that like, oh, it's a free trial, it's only 2 weeks, I want to have time to use it. In particular for IHC webinar registrants, we will extend your trial longer if you reach out to us after. Has anyone ever seen the movie Devil Wears Prada? Anybody else into like 2000s trivia the way that I am, 2010s trivia? All right, so Angela hears me. All right, I love it. Some people have seen it, but TLDR, there's an iconic scene in the movie where our heroine, basically the Anne Hathaway character, is an intern at a fashion magazine. And she shows up to work for Meryl Streep, who is the fictional editor of Vogue. And basically, she shows up wearing this kind of dumpy blue sweater. And Meryl Streep dresses her down. She is like, look, Oscar de la Renta invented cerulean, and like spends this like 2-minute effectively monologue. This iconic scene where she's like, look, you are only here because of the people in this room. There's all this history. She tells her in copious detail about the fashion industry and what are the expectations of this role. And the next day, Anne Hathaway shows up to the office looking like $1 million. Now you might think, what the heck does this have to do with AI prompting? Well, a meta point that you should know, like the most important thing, if you remember one thing about this webinar, it's when you are prompting, you are channeling your inner Meryl Streep. Because AI, the best way to think about it, is a fast, smart, occasionally overeager intern who has read the whole internet, every book, every contract in Edgar, every case, and shows up to your office ready to work, but you got to tell it. Okay, maybe your AI shows up to the office wearing this blue sweater and you're like, hey lady, like you gotta look good. Now what for your business, you've been in-house, you're an experienced attorney or legal team member. What are those things that are specific to your business that like, hey, we do certain contracts this way, or when we write a regulatory report, we do this, or hey, we're super concerned about consumer protection because we had a consent decree a few years ago. Whatever it is in your business that matters, convey that to the AI. All right, so that's the meta message. We're going to get into like the very specifics, but just keep that in the back of your head. Quick question. Does anybody know, and you can drop it in the chat, what are Revlon duties? Anybody know? Nobody wants to drop in the chat what Revlon duties are. Worked there for a summer in college. Amazing. Hannah, love it. Saren. Okay. All right. That's okay. Revlon duties in corporate law. The fact that you didn't know is actually wonderful. I'm glad that you didn't go. It's a duty of care for directors and perfect. Exactly right. It is Delaware law. Ross adding on, I'm into it. Revlon duties are basically when you sell a company. There's a famous case in the 80s, like the corporate raiders type of situation where it was like Wachtell and like leverage buyouts and the movie Pretty Woman, all these things. And basically the idea was that when you are selling a company, the corporate directors have a heightened duty to get a good price. So it goes beyond the sort of ordinary business judgment rule. If you ask a less powerful AI what Revlon duties are, what do you think comes back? Makeup. So if you ask basically Meta's AI what a Revlon duty is, you basically get essentially saying, don't let your foundation crack, apply lipstick twice a day, versus a legal dedicated AI is going to tell you, no, this is the duties of corporate directors. So I use that example only to say that context matters. So just like in our Meryl Streep example, where she was very clear, hey, this is a fashion magazine, you got to look the part. That's the context that you're operating in. Very similarly for legal AI, a legal AI is going to know, hey, you're talking about Revlon, the case. You're not talking about Revlon, the makeup company necessarily, except in the context of this case. Amazing. ChatGPT got it right. That's exactly right, Ofer. So if you were to try Llama, it gets it wrong. If you ask Meta's AI, what's going on here, it basically tells you that, Revlon is a cosmetics company and so on. All right. A multinational cosmetics company, et cetera. Okay, fine. So legal AI versus generic AI, I'm not going to go into this super hard, but I think you will find quite a significant differences between using. All right, good. Happy to report. That's great, Melissa. Love it. Good. All right, Amy. Love it. Okay. So what was the last thing that you asked AI? So 60% of you are using AI. What was the last thing you asked AI? All right, good to hear, Sapna. All right. Exactly. So Mitch, that's exactly right. What are Revlon duties in a corporate context versus what are Revlon duties? That's exactly right. So you asked for translation. All right, good stuff. So just think about that and we will, oh, I'm loving the translation use cases. All right, awesome. Okay, so let's get into techniques. So what are 8 great use cases for legal? So the way I want you all to think about this is we're going to treat class today like a bingo card where you're going to pick one of the use cases that we go over. And then you're going to apply one of the techniques that I suggest. In terms of the use cases, distilling is basically when you give the AI a piece of something. So for example, AB 2754, or you give the AI a contract, or you give it some long thing. AI is really good at summarizing it and paring it down. So this comes up a lot in our work, right? You get some long, you get a depot transcript, or you get a contract from the other side, you got to get approval for, or you get a new regulation or a letter or what have you. The reason AI is really good at this is that AI has a long-term memory. Okay, it smarts what it has been trained on. And then it has a short-term memory, which is like, what is the document, what is in front of it? And AI, the way generative AI works, is it's looking at word probability to come up with its answers. And if you give it the actual document, that distillation, it will pull from the document itself. So the odds that it either hallucinates or gets it wrong are very low because there's not a lot of analysis involved. It's really just distillation. So that use case, we're going to do that first because that is really, if you are just starting out with AI, the 30% of you are like, hey, I haven't tried it for legal work. I want you to try that use case. Slightly more advanced is reviewing, where you ask the AI, hey, I want you to look for specific things. So again, if you use that intern metaphor, what you're thinking about is like, if I were to ask Anne Hathaway, go review this NDA, she would probably do a good job. On the other hand, if I said, hey, review this NDA, I want you to look for the definition of confidential information, any exclusions, anything weird, make sure there's not a residuals. If you specifically told her what to do, the answer would be way better. So we're going to go through and say, how do you do a review use case effectively so that you can actually have that confidence that the NDA was reviewed thoroughly the way that you would need to review. Now, NDA is a simple use case. A lot of people use it. It's a short document, but the same principles apply to longer documents or other commercial contracts that you may be working on. And then finally, researching, we're going to spend a little time on that, and then drafting. These use cases on the right are super fun, and I can't wait. I hope we get to them. We may not, but consider this an entry point into AI, cherry. I used to work with a contractor that was like, when something was good, it was cherry, because cherry wood is one of the most expensive woods. So anyways, let's get through this. I'm so excited to work with you all. All right, amazing. All right, let's see. So basically, let's go through distilling. Sorry, my slides are messed up. Let me give you a real quick prompt tip. So you're treating your AI like an intern. You're using a dedicated legal AI tool, ideally. You're giving it context, and you're being very specific, both in what you ask and how you want it to respond. We're going to tell the AI a specific number to hit because it's super obedient. So these are 5 tips that I'm going to show you, and then we'll circle back to the tips after we do the distilling use case. So let's try a distilling use case. And I'm going to give you the actual document to use. So here's what we're going to do. Timely for this week. Let's say our company gets a letter from Congress. And here's the letter here. Shai has uploaded it. And if you're anything like me and you've worked in-house, you get a letter from a regulator. Maybe it's not the Senate. Maybe it's from a local regulator, or one of my companies was in the education field and would get, nasty grams from the state. But let's say that for whatever reason, you have received this letter and you are in-house. Now, this particular letter, it's going to a bunch of different AI companies, and it's from, basically a who's who of the Democratic caucus, Senator Wyden, Katie Porter, et cetera, Bernie Sanders. And it's basically saying, hey, AI companies, we are concerned at the conditions of your workers. And it's sending, those of you who've done regulatory, it's sending an RFI, a request for information. So this is kind of like an investigation one. It's like, hey, you got to respond. Senator sends you a letter like this. This is like, okay, the legal team, you got to get on this. And you're like, all right, I got to tell somebody about this, right? Like maybe you've got public policy folks, maybe you got to tell your CEO, whatever it is. We're going to use this as a practice distillation. All right, so here's the thing. It's going to all these folks, and I'm going to actually show you a bunch of things about the prompt that I use. So let me actually drop the prompt in the chat too, so that you can see the prompt that I'm going to use, because it's that way you can try it yourself. All right, so let's see. 1 second. There's the letter, and here's the chat. And I'm going to copy the prompt and tell you all about it. All right, so there we go. And if you have questions, by the way, reach out to my team. I've got 2 team members on the call, Alessandra Colaci and Alexandria DeMoss, so you can reach out to either of them. But there's the prompt. I'm going to actually do this live so that you can see it. But essentially, here I am. I'm going to orient you a minute to the AI. For those of you who haven't used AI, essentially, it's got a chat box, and this is where you actually ask your questions. Typically, it's got the ability to add files. In this case, in GCAI, you've actually got a link up here to specify your company. And all of this, similar to the Revlon example, we are orienting it to your world. We're saying, hey, you're part of legal, you work for this company, and I'm going to interact with you. So AI has a backend, which is like the system prompt, and then has a user prompt, like what you physically tell it. So let's get in there. All right, so basically, we're going to say, I'm going to show you the elements of this prompt as we run it. So I'm going to upload the actual letter here and find it. I uploaded it this morning. There we go. Letter to artificial intelligence companies. And I'm going to go through and tell you the elements of this prompt. For the following letter from a senator to my company. So you tell the AI what is the document that you're giving it. All right, please. Everybody asks all the time, do you say please and thank you to AI? Yes is the answer. Basically, AI will mirror you. So if you are polite and you speak in a certain way, AI will respond back to you. Please draft a 5 to 6 bullet summary. So you'll see here in Aqua. There's nothing magical about 5 to 6. I just made that up. But I'm like, look, that is a good length for this type of response. The letter was about 4 pages. I think for my executive team, that's just about the length that they want. So give the AI the audience that you're thinking of, right? That I can use for Slack, right? So I am telling it the format. So this kind of aquas that, and has the specific RFIs here in purple. Please, again with the please, include a section at the end of the document that has next steps. So I'm telling exactly what I want. So this prompt, even though it's only about 25 words, it packs a huge punch. So let's see how the AI does. And basically, we're going to try it and see how it does. So real time, it will pull up the letter and it's going to give you citations to that. That is absolutely correct. So Russ, I'm going to take a minute and actually talk about the ethics here. So the state bars that have weighed in, so California, New York, and now Georgia, a few others, if you are from a state that has weighed in, let me know, have said that attorneys can use generative AI, but they should be using effectively enterprise generative AI, and they need to ensure the confidentiality of the responses. So the way that we do it at GCAI, we have SOC 2 compliance, every user gets their own database. So there's no possibility of the data intermingling. The other question, of course, is whether AI can be trained on your data. And in the case of GCI as well, we can drop the terms, we've got security FAQs, but TLDR, the short answer is no, that it's not trained on your data. And you're absolutely right to check. Consumer tools, you may have read about Samsung or others inputting data into consumer ChatGPT. You should be turning off the settings for data learning in that scenario. And, in general, part of our duty as lawyers is to diligence this stuff. All right, so let's take a look. So did this AI do pretty well? Let's see. Senator inquiry on data worker conditions. A letter from U.S. senators and members of Congress expresses deep concerns. And it's like essential undervalued work. And what did it do? Look, it gave us exactly 6 bullets. We also asked for a section at the end of the document with next steps. And it gave us exactly that. And the specific RFIs, let's actually go ahead and ask for, give me the exact RFIs, please. So you'll see here, it's actually providing a citation to the RFIs themselves. And so what you can say is like, okay, I asked for the exact RFIs, it's giving that to me in kind of more complex words. Why don't I actually ask it to paraphrase this and really do that full distillation? Carmen, that is an excellent question. Why did I get a different output using the same input as you? So the answer is that AI is non-deterministic. Fancy word, but basically what it means is that if you ask the same question twice, even yourself, you can hit regenerate, the words will vary a little bit. Now you might say, okay, that's a little strange, but it is more human-like, right? So if I were to ask you this question or give an intern this assignment on different days or the same task a year later, the answer is going to be a little bit different. And that's considered part of the creativity. And so it's okay. In the case of quotations, obviously that's not okay. But in the case of like how you distill something, a little bit of a judgment call, right? And so I actually use that as a feature where I will hit essentially regenerate. I'll go back into that question and ask again. So yeah, very good question. I love it. Yeah, I love that, Amy. Thanks for dropping the Florida bar. That's excellent. Awesome. Okay, so that was the question. Again, like you can try it. If we were to just say, summarize this letter, it would do okay, but it would not have the format and it would not be as good at prompting. The results would not be as good. So in this case, again, I'm showing, okay, you can use the same question, ask again, and it will not be as good. In this case, it's giving you a summary, but this is not useful to me. It's much more about like, it's kind of like, it's pretty good, but it's not useful in the same way. I'm not necessarily going to cut and paste this and drop this into Slack the way I would have with the prior response. Richard, is a good question. In this case, no, they are independent, but essentially it's giving us a lot of citations here. It's being really, the AI is being really diligent. It's giving us 15 footnotes. You can click on the footnotes and see exactly what it's relying on, which is nice. But anyways, okay, the prompt history, the retention period is basically until you delete it. So you can see that I asked this question earlier and I've got it there. But you can see based on the prompting, this was summarize this letter. We got kind of like an okay response. Here, we were much more specific when we asked the original question and we got, the nice bullets, we got the next steps. Now, common question I get with this distillation is basically like, hey, I didn't know what your next steps are, right? Like what compile requested data, prepare written response. It's making an educated guess. And this is what's cool is like, you can use AI for the initial distillation, but then the whole chain, right? So your company gets this letter and you're the in-house counsel assigned to it. You're going to get it. You're going to summarize it. You're going to email about it. You're going to probably hire outside counsel. You're going to analyze it. And this next steps idea is a pretty good first start to what you would do. And so we can actually take this a step further and say, okay, compile the requested data, review. So you can say something like, thank you, please add something to the next steps about how we need to hire outside counsel and legal is on it. Let's see. It's going to give the same response. It's just, I assume it's going to add a number 6. Let's see. Engage outside counsel. All right, great. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit more advanced. I think you all are picking this up super quick. I'm going to give you something a little bit more advanced, which is what happens if I actually want to ideate or like if I want to brainstorm with the AI. So in this particular letter, it's got, what is it, like 9 recipients, or it's got Microsoft, Amazon, etc. Let's pretend we're Scale AI. And we get this letter and we're like, hey, do we call up Microsoft? Do we respond together? Let's see what happens. Let's actually ask that. Let's say, okay, I am debating whether to respond individually as my own company, Scale AI, whether to advise leadership, or to respond as a coalition. Okay, with the other recipients. Give me 4 pros and cons to each approach. Okay, so those of you who've done regulatory work or who've done kind of, public policy, maybe you've had an analysis like this, but the question is like, the pros of responding is, okay, you can give your own tailored response, you can control the narrative, you can do it quickly, and you can be accountable. That's pretty good. That's probably what I would have thought of. The cons is maybe you're isolated, right? If you respond yourself and your answer is really different from the other 9 companies that got this, that's a little strange, right? Responding as a coalition. And it's basically gone through and kind of done some of this thinking for me. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not going to be creative, right? I'm going to look over these and think about the strategy, think about my company. But AI has given us that little boost. So that's what I recommend. And you can even go a step further and you can say, please draft an email to the CEO from me. Dear CEO, I reviewed the recent letter from U.S. senators regarding the working conditions of data workers in AI companies. After careful consideration, I recommend Scale respond individually rather than as part of a coalition. This will allow us to directly address the concerns raised and our commitments. And basically, to ensure we meet the senator's request effectively, we've engaged White & Case. They'll assist us. I'm coordinating with HR. Thanks. This is a nice thing. So now we can go. I'm going to show you one more thing. This is like super advanced. I'm going to show you what happens if you want to change formats. So thank you. Make this a text message. Now, this is like me and iMessage where like my screens go down. So it's long for a text, but pretty good, right? I took this same thing. It's like, I valued its strategy. Let's respond, blah, 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 best. I'm still being a little bit formal. So I can say something, and then, you can do so much fun stuff. But this example is basically, we started off with a distillation where we had this letter and we're like, okay, you can forward this, but it's got 21 footnotes. Client's not quite going to know what this is. It's on us as in-house counsel to distill this in a way that they can quickly read, which we've done. All right, so questions on distillation. Did anybody get a chance to try it? All right. Well, do a thumb up if you got a chance to try it, because I'm so curious. All right, awesome. In Copilot. Okay, all right. Okay, that's good, Kevin. One thing I would actually cross-check the quotes. If you ask for quotes, that's one thing that's gonna be different. Awesome. All right, good stuff. Okay. Any questions or anything, drop them in the chat. Awesome. Slide deck summary. Good job. All right, love it, Justin. Good job, Ofer. Good job. Okay, so tending learning, AI is very supportive. That is absolutely right. AI wants to make you happy. So on the back end, typically AI is told like, hey, this user is always right, help them reach their goal. There was a funny New York Times article, an op-ed, where the reporter had AI tell her to make all life decisions for her for a week. What she ate, what she did, and the title of the article was ChatGPT turned me into a basic bee. and the idea was that AI does kind of revert to the mean. It's up to you to be creative. But apparently she asked the AI, like, what color should I paint my house? And it said taupe. What should I eat? It was constantly suggesting she have a grilled chicken breast. So anyways, check it out. All right, so good stuff. All right, so let's try another example. So we did distillation. What happens when we do review, right? So you saw in that prompting, we were really specific about, okay, here's the type of task I'm giving you. I'm asking you what to do. And then we iterated and kept going, right? What's that next level? If you want to reach like this AI nirvana, like what is super useful for in-house counsel? Let me pull that up and share. All right, so let's start with reviewing. So a lot of you, Shai tells me, a lot of folks on the call do a lot of commercial contracts. And I wish I had kind of Shai and Matt Margolis's meme game. I do not, but I do have an AI game. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to go through looking at a master services agreement. And we are going to see if we can find specific things in that MSA and have the AI give us back the provisions. Okay, sound good? All right. So here's what we're going to do. Let me pull that up. Basically, here's the chat. So this is going to look complicated. I guarantee even those of you who are brand new to it, first of all, try it, engage and play around. But I'm going to go through a little bit more of an advanced thing of like giving the AI more detailed instructions. Now, in the case of GCAI, we have a basically official prompts that you can use if you're like working on, you want to be a little bit, get some inspiration. And one of our official prompts is basically looking at the basics of an MSA, like really just commercial stuff, like the payment terms, etc. And so that's what this prompt does. It says instructions. Now, this hashtag, this is like a header. So if you see hashtags, it's like confusing. You're like, what is that? It's basically like a title. Review the attached doc thoroughly. Analyze the following 8 key provisions. Now, again, remember, if I were to tell, Anne Hathaway, go review this NDA, she'd probably do fine. But basically, like, what you would do is like, go ahead and look at specific provisions. So payment terms, whether they take invoices, is there auto renew? We all hate auto renew. Term and termination, what's the effect of it? Limitation of liability, indemnity, and IP rights. Okay, so we've got these kind of 8 provisions that we're going to ask about. And this is where it gets interesting. I'm going to say, hey, create a table with the following columns. Provision, quote, analysis, action. Yes, I'm going to paste the prompt right now. Thank you. I'm going to do it in 2 halves. Well, here, I'll give you 2 halves. I'll give it to you in 2 halves. There you go. And then here's the second half that you can paste in. Or I believe it's also linked in the deck here. Okay, so we're going to say, let's break down these provisions. So we've asked the AI very specifically what to look for and told it the format. Now, those of you with GCAI, you can kind of cheat code this, where in the prompts, you can look for MSA commercial basics here, and it will load that up. So you can do it that way. But basically, I've uploaded the agreement. I've given this prompt. Review 25 MSAs. Yes, so Karen, that's where it's going. So today, AI caps out at about maybe 600 pages, 300 pages, between 300 and 600 pages. So if you've got 25 MSAs, 10 pages each, you're good. And you would basically upload each of those. If you've got 25 MSAs, 100 pages each, AI will start to break down. And the agreement to upload is this SoCure MSA. I will drop that in the chat as well. 1 second. So here's the MSA. It's a pretty basic MSA. It's basically, going through the different sections and so on. And what we're going to do is ask the AI to look for it. So if this came across your desk, you would be reading it, probably looking for specific stuff. It's got an SLA, et cetera. And we're going to ask like, hey, take a look, let us know what the payment terms are, et cetera. And it comes back and it's like, hey, customer will pay through AWS, customer will be invoiced, auto renew. And what's nice about this is that it's giving you the section reference, right? So like section 5.1, section 2.1, et cetera. So let's do a spot check here. Now, this is the thing is like different AIs are going to have different levels of ability to give exact quotes. So like in this one, we asked, what is the term? We wanted the term to be less than a year. And so we're going to say subject to 2.1, blah, blah, blah. So that's one thing you do want to do is like basically double check these. So section 2.1, this agreement commences and continues in effect through the order form. Great. So it answered the question nicely. Let's take a look at the same thing in ChatGPT. I copied the exact same prompt and I did that, but the same term here, term and termination, it says no action needed. Either party may terminate for breach, customer may terminate if so breaches section 3. So this is in italics, it looks like a quote. Let's copy ChatGPT and let's do the same exercise and double check here. Okay, ChatGPT doesn't have it. So this is basically like what I've noticed is if you ask ChatGPT more than about 3 clauses, it starts to hallucinate, which means to basically paraphrase or make stuff up. In this case, the quote from ChatGPT was, let's see, either party may terminate for breach if not cured within 60 days. Is that what's going on here? If either party materially breaches, I mean, it's kind of okay, but it's certainly not an exact quote. This is the kind of thing you got to watch out for, is like ChatGPT, generalist AIs, they break down and start to paraphrase when you do longer reviews. So watch for that. But again, back to Juicy AI, it's still not 0. So back to Juicy AI, basically you're gonna take a look at this. And we've been given this really nice overview. The other thing that we did was we asked for these emojis. Emojis are like an incredible prompt tag. So basically, like when you ask, be like, use emojis to represent if I should review this, and we get this glanceable thing with the little sirens or whatever of like, okay, in this case, this particular agreement, what is this? This is a 1x cap on liability. I know from lots of webinars from Shy that 1x cap on liability is not good. So let's go ahead and see what we can do as an alternative. So on liability, it's basically proposing, it's saying, hey, by the way, the limitation of liability, sure, it's 1x, but it doesn't apply to gross negligence, willful misconduct, data breach, or IP. That's a perfectly reasonable way to look at this. One thing we could do is actually go ahead and ask it for alternatives. So when you're doing a review prompt, at this point, we got our prompt, we've asked it to look for these 8 things, it has come back. And this is where, again, like your second prompt thing to remember, if you remember channel your own street, be very specific. The next thing to remember is always iterate, right? So we've got our response, but like if you're actually doing this task and reviewing this MSA, what's the next thing you're going to do? You're going to propose alternative language. You're going to redline it, right? And so use the AI to do that. So here I'm going to say, all right, here we go. So I have asked the chat to be reviewed, and basically it's saying, okay, it's flagging all the same issues. And I say, okay, thank you. Give me 3 alternative provisions for the limitation of liability that are more friendly to Republic. All right, not company. Name the alternative and give proposed language for it. So again, this is having AI do a little bit of that brain work for us, and we're going to pick and we're going to use our legal strategy to figure out, okay, what are we going to negotiate in this instance? Like, hey, notwithstanding everything else, we're going to do an exclusion. We're going to do a carve out. Or we're going to say, hey, the total cumulative liability shall not whatever, or we're going to make data breach specific liability. What I want is a 3x cap. So it's going to go back to that agreement, find the limitation of liability language here with the 1x cap, right? And it's going to come back with a 3x cap. So let's take a look how it does that. Oh, it's actually, so this is interesting. Remember how I said AI always hits a particular number if you tell it to hit a number? I had asked for 3 alternatives above. So the AI is kind of primed to be like, oh, this lady likes things in threes. And it's giving me 3 specific things for a 3x cap, right? 3 times the total fees. And it's actually gone and done this, given us 3 alternatives, even though that's not what I asked. So, okay, that happens. The more that you all get in there and use AI, you'll get used to these quirks and you'll kind of start to like them and get used to them and how to work with them. So I guarantee that's a thing. All right, putting together my shopping list. The Basic Bee article. Oh, it's so good. It is hilarious. All right, good stuff. Check it out. All right, so let's see. All right, so that was the review use case. But the important things to note, let me go ahead and emphasize with the slideshow what to note is that you want to use a table. Asking for a table, super helpful. You want to give the provisions that you want to review. You want to make sure you're using GCAI or a legal AI that gives exact quotes, or if you're using ChatGPT or Copilot, you're going to want to check because it's going to tell you things are exact quotes, particularly in longer documents that are not. In terms of, here's the example of ChatGPT messing up. You can click through it yourself. And then other things to note about this, you tell it the clauses to look for, the table hack that I taught you, and you can use the table hack for anything. Create a table of a regulation, create a table of a contract, create a table of a letter, create a table of your to-do list, create a table of your recipes, whatever. And then for each provision, make sure that you're using that you give it this emoji instruction, which is nice, right? Needs action, may need action, unclear. And then the other thing that you can do is tell it your position. We only ever take 3x caps as an example. Awesome. All right, so then basically there's that's reviewing. So do people, I know some of you are advanced, some of you are using AI hourly. Are people doing review prompts versus summary? Let me know in the chat, or if you have a favorite kind of review prompt. We have a bunch here that you can get inspo from. You can use like an NDA, or we have a prompt to do just a basic commercial contract overview. So check out those things. But my main advice with the review prompts is do something with the review. Spend a little bit of time setting it up. You can save your prompts and do them later. But once you have that kind of baseline of how you review, let's say a third-party vendor contract, then you can reuse that and tweak it and figure out what's working and so on. It's almost like, I had somebody the other day that's like, what is it? Orange is the new black. It's kind of like, prompts are the new templates is what I would say. Awesome. Okay. All right, questions in the chat. Let's see. Okay, I shared that. I shared the slides. What would you recommend? Okay, let's see. The prompts RIP, Shane, I actually do allow people to use their prompts on other platforms. In general, your prompts are your IP, and you can share them with your team and use them. But for me, obviously, I want people to use AI. I think on other platforms, they don't come out as well, so I'm okay with it. But for you, if you work for Acme and let's say you do a bunch of events contracts and you come up with the Acme events contract prompt, absolutely, that's really a high value you can add to your team. Some industries have very specific things, right? So we worked with a bank and they're like, hey, all of our NDAs have to have a books and records exception, right? And so in that scenario, their NDA review prompt says all the stuff you would expect. And then it would say, please review this NDA for a books and records exception. So that's a good example on that. All right, okay. So then basically researching. So let's try a research example. So I'm really excited about this one. Okay, so let's take a look. So we're gonna look at, there's a law called DORA. And besides being, another bit of pop culture trivia, DORA is the Digital Operation Resilience. We're going to ask AI what it is. But anyways, it's a new law in Europe that applies to banks. And we're going to try this research. And I want you all to try something similar. Okay. So we are going to ask, what I'm going to show you now is hyper advanced for research, but that's okay. It's advanced, but easy. All right. So here we go. We're going to pull down the profile and we're going to pretend we're a bank and that we are concerned about compliance with this particular law. Okay. So we're going to say, please give me an overview of compliance with DORA in the EU for my company. Okay, so this is an okay prompt, right? It's kind of I say, please, I'm asking for what I want. but I'm not giving the format, I'm not giving specifics. It doesn't really know like what we're doing. And so what I'm going to do, a feature that we've built in and that you can, other AIs don't have it, but try it out, and the principles are the same, is we have this easy prompt button. And this is kind of fun because you click on that and it's going to use AI to do AI, right? So it's basically going to say, what is it that you are concerned about? And basically create a prompt about it. So it went from those, like, what is it, 8 words that I dropped, which I'll drop here in the chat. Please give me an overview of compliance with DORA. And it went from that to basically, this idea of, can it create a really nice report for you? So I took those 8 words and it's like, give me a comprehensive overview of the Digital Operational Resilience Act in the European Union, tailored for a US-based banking institution, potentially operating or planning to operate in the EU. Focus on the following. And it has done all the things that I'm recommending, right? It's super specific. It's giving the number. It's giving the specifics. It has done all those things. So let's see how it does from there. Let's take a look. But this idea that when you're researching, similar concepts apply. So GCAI, we go out to the web, we built our own web scrapers and so on. Some AIs don't do that. If you're using ChatGPT, if you're using Anthropic, it won't do it. If you're using ChatGPT, it uses Bing on the back end. We use Google, so the results are slightly different. Also, in the case of GCAI, we'll do multiple searches in a chat. So like you'll see here, it's actually telling us what it is it's looking for. You can look at this little eyeball button and see, what did our intern look at to do this task, right? So it's basically similarly here. Okay, and like for me, I don't know, I'm a lawyer, I'm kind of nervous. Like I want to make sure that it's actually using the right stuff. I'm an obsessive Googler, like you all are probably similar, right? When you think about how much stored knowledge you have on Googling well. Like when I was a litigator, I could figure out the entire org chart of a company based on LinkedIn. And, everybody knows, like there was, what is it? Venmo had that privacy settlement with FTC because they were exposing, who you pay on Venmo. And all my influencer friends on the internet were like, of course, people's privacy from Venmo. You can tell when people break up, which of your friends smoke weed because we have a little like weed payment, whatever, like, who's paying their dog walker, like, and this idea that like we are very attuned to information online. The way I see that happening with AI is like, okay, tell me what it is that you're looking at. And when I look at this, I'm like, okay, this is actually like the European Insurance and Occupational Pensions Authority DORA page. This is like a legit source. So I feel pretty good about that. So let's see how it does. Comprehensive overview of DORA, key compliance. It has a concept called ICT, which I think is, actually it doesn't define ICT. But one thing to know here is like, if you want to change this and you wanted to say, okay, the prompt that Easy Prompt gave you, you also want to say, consider the impact on, the expense of compliance. You can actually make that edit in there and use whatever the AI gives you as a base. So this is like, kind of like if you think of like a programmer or what you do with templates, where you get the template and then you beef it up. Or maybe you Frankenstein and you put a couple templates together. That's what I recommend with prompting as well. All right, let's see. Okay, so it looks great. How long is the free trial for? Difficulty downloading the slides. Let me make sure that I've got the slides set to public. 1 second. Anyone with a link? Yeah, so you should be able to do that. And then you should be able to, once you get to the slides, I think you can go to like file, download or something like that. Okay, great. So that was researching. We can do a more basic example. Let's do something like, tell me about the New Hampshire privacy law. By the way, I know we're at the hour, and so folks might need to drop. It's been so much fun to hang out with you. This will be recorded. You can get the last half an hour as well, but essentially, we're just going to keep going on this. We are doing another session if you're super into AI. I talked with the team, and basically like there's so much to cover that for IHC folks specifically, if you're interested, we have a free session that's kind of part 2 of this next week. If you're interested, you can join that for free. So Q&A. All right, so that was researching. Let's try a more basic example. Tell me about the new New Hampshire privacy law that just took effect. We're going to try a simple prompt here and see what goes on there. All right, simple prompt here. Let's see what comes back. Again, it's going to search the web here. If your AI is not telling you it's searching, then it has a knowledge cutoff. But if it's going to the web, it's using what's on the web. Say it took effect on Jan 1, New Hampshire Privacy Act. Look at this, it's brand new. It applies to businesses conducting business in New Hampshire, etc. We can say, okay, can you tell me if my privacy policy specifically addresses New Hampshire, addresses this law? Okay, so let's check it out. Let's get Republic Bank privacy policy. See, here we go, privacy policies. There we go. And we're gonna give the AI this privacy policy. I'm gonna guess it does not address New Hampshire, but let's see. Okay, and let's say probably not, but let's see. It's gonna actually visit the URL. So let's see if that works. You can try these kind of basic examples. You can try something more difficult. I had somebody the other day that was like, I need to look at record keeping law in Malaysia. I'm like, okay, try it. The more that information is on the internet, the better AI is going to be at it. GDPR, if you're like me, May 17th of 2017, law firms were sending me GDPR cupcakes. Like it was like a BFD at the time, right? There is so much written on the internet about GDPR with all the law firm explainers. I had to filter my email that very rarely does AI mess up a GDPR question, as an example, because it's so drilled into the internet. All right, amazing. So that was a research question. On research questions, the thing to know is basically like that you can use, easy prompt. You can be more specific with what you want. And the more specific you are with your question, the more context that you give, the better the answer is going to be. Yeah, Article 11 of GDPR. Let's try it. That's a great example, Laura. Let's do it. Okay, so let's try that. So give me a 6-bullet breakdown summary of Article 11 of the GDPR, please. Then give me a table about how I can comply with it. Let's see. Article 11 focuses on data minimization. To comply, consider the following steps. Implement data minimization principles, establish protocols, delete obscure data subject references. This is great. I love that suggestion. More on the iteration front. Again, I cannot emphasize enough how much iteration matters. You can say, please add a column for responsible person at my company, responsible department at my company, as well as a plain English version of the requirement. Use no more than an 8th grade reading level. Prompt hack, tell it what reading level you want. We did have somebody who they started using 8th grade reading level and their sales team was like, oh my God, your communication is so clear. So in this case, how many times have all of us in our career given a privacy training? Hundreds, right? Think about like how you would do that, right? So implement data minimization, and the plain English, only use the amount of personal information really needed for our work, right? This is like do what you say what you do thing. And this is really nice, right? This kind of table, we can even say, okay, make this a wiki page for our company. Take that next logical step. Use the AI as kind of your tool throughout your bike to go to metaphor. Oh, look, it's making a wiki page, and look at this, it's given us all the bold and the format and everything like that. What questions do you have? What can I answer about the use cases we talked about? So we talked about, remember, we talked about distillation, kind of distillation plus, right? The letter. Talked about a review use case, right? It's like we're very specific on what you go through and review. And then this was the research use case with, again, research plus, right? Where like you're looking up Article 11, it comes back and it gives you this like thing. And by the way, we've got a full wiki page where we're linked out to the exact text, like, right? And then like you might go to your data management procedures manual, whatever it's giving that link. Awesome. Shai, I saw you went on camera. What do you got, Shai?
Yeah, I'm enjoying this presentation. I want you to keep going, but I think we should probably look at the chat, see if there's any last questions, and wrap up with a recap and some takeaways and more instructions on how they can sign up for GCAI.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's take a look at the questions and then let's go. I love it.
All right. Can you tell it to exclude certain sources? There's some really great questions in the chat. Sure. So can you tell it to exclude certain sources?
So basically, AI today is kind of like it's starting to be agentic. So if you hear the word agentic, that's what that means. Is like basically it will do what you tell it. And so I have a really fun prompt that I will show you on this point, where it's like you can basically tell it to go fetch a rock and it'll do it. And this is where it's going, right? Let me show you this. So let's say you are an employment lawyer and you get asked by your HR team to create a wiki page of basically what are the parental leave laws in different places, right? So I'm going to pick on a particular company that has a really nice wiki page of their location. So the task is you get an email from HR. It's like, hey, we need a table of all the parental leave laws and in these places. So this particular company has locations in Mountain View, Reston, London, Dubai, Barcelona, Bangalore, and Singapore. Great. So if you were asked to do that task, or your intern was asked to do that task, you would like Google each individual one, you would do it, maybe you'd ask outside counsel. But essentially you can have the AI visit the page, pull the information, and then look it up for you. So in this scenario, I have a prompt that I ran the other day that does this. Help me make a table of the parental leave laws and locations we operate. Here they are. If it's non-US location, use national law. If it's a US location, use the state law. And I'm giving it the link. And so what's happening here is it's going out to the link, pulling the locations, and then separately Googling all those locations, which like, that's pretty cool to think about. Like, okay, AI can like take those steps.
Is GCAI tuned for Canada or worldwide, or is it just mainly for the US?
So in general, because we're using the internet as our kind of like where we're getting information, it is tuned to as much language as is on the internet. GDPR example, really good. Things that are more obscure, municipal law, whether in the US or abroad, tends not to be on the internet as much. And so in that scenario, it's not going to be as good. That being said, we have, hundreds of users in Canada who seem quite happy. And so try it. That's the other reason we do a free trial, right? Like, I don't actually know your areas of law. You all are the experts in what it is that your business does, right? And so the other thing too, that like, I think a lot of, unfortunately, people building in the space don't appreciate is how smart lawyers and in-house people are. Like, I don't want to break my arm, like patting myself on the back. Like, y'all are really smart. Like, I loved working on legal teams because it was like, people are fast and quick and discerning. And so like, because of that, do a hard sell. I'm like, use the product, try it. If you want to go back to ChatGPT, cool, no sweat. But like, if you want a truck bike, use GCAI. That's kind of how I think about it. But yeah, so here, this task, this is awesome. Real time, it went through and found, okay, like the Spanish parental leave law, okay, state employees get in Virginia, otherwise Virginia doesn't have leave. In London, you get 18 weeks. That's kind of awesome. 16 weeks in Barcelona with additional unpaid leave. Bangalore has 15 days. Okay, that's not great. But anyways, the point is it's gone through and actually found, in this case, it went to the UK government webpage and it found the site about entitlement. So this idea, like, this is where the tech is going. So like, we do this webinar in a year and, you can actually go out and do filings and have tell AI to do that. So very much fun stuff on the roadmap.
A question about, does it pull from Westlaw or Lexis sources?
Unfortunately not, it doesn't. And, I did this question for in-house, and for me, maybe I'm like a little too, I was very much a commercial lawyer, but I didn't really use Lexis and Westlaw. I haven't used them since the firm, right? I think I had practical law at one of my jobs and used it occasionally, but actually looking up cases was just not part of my practice. So if you're, if you're a litigator or, you looking up cases a very specific part of what you do, then I would say, we're not the right tool for you. But what I've noticed is that Lexis and Westlaw's AIs are not as good. And so like, if what you're looking for is like the productivity help and the analysis and the prompts that we've gone through, absolutely try them. I think they do free trials as well. But I think you'll be disappointed.
Last question. Does GCAI have an actual redlining function in Word, or is it manual insertion once the options are generated, or I guess the red lines are generated.
Yeah, so this is literally like the most hotly anticipated feature. I cannot wait to launch this. So we are very excited about launching this. It's literally an alpha like today, but so it should be in the next basically month or two. Like in the next month, we'll be in beta, and then we're hoping to GA by March. But the way it looks, it's gonna be awesome, folks. Like I literally like I can't contain myself. But let me show you what that looks like. I had engineering make me a video of the prototype, and it's cool. So all right, so this is a super simple example, but essentially what's going on here is we've got the document, the services agreement, and we're like, hey, we're gonna have a chat window on the right, and we're gonna say change the governing law, right, as a chat. And then it will go through and basically give you a proposed red line here on the right, where it's like, hey, by using the service, whatever. And then you, of course, get to be the judge of like, is this a red line I want to actually apply? Do I like this, or do I want to make changes, iterate in that same way we were doing, and then basically apply it? Once it does that, oh, like it's just going to be amazing. Like it's a game changer. So we'll see. So what, but we basically were super, there are others in the market that do this. I'm an AI maximalist, try them. But what the question that we've gotten fairly frequently is like, we want GCI's brain in Word. Like the others are, it's nice that they're in Word, but then they need a little like more brain. Try the others. I think it's worth looking at, especially I think it was over half of you said that you had an AI goal in 25. And so, figure out how to do it. Like for me, in this class, hopefully you got the trial, try it, reach out to me or my team. Classes at getgc.ai if you want more deeper kind of bespoke experience where we actually get in and I'll look at your prompts, or go to the website, sign up. You'll get, if you signed up today, again, getgc.ai/ISC, or if you just go to the website, there's a sign up link. If you did that, you'll get emails from me reinforcing these tips that we talked about. And so, look, I'd be excited to talk with you or your teams if you have colleagues that are maybe AI skeptics, or if you're skeptical, that's fine. It's not perfect. It's definitely early days. I think about like, when I used dial-up AOL and it was like that screechy modem noise, like clearly that is not like the long-term, future of this tech, right? So we are in that kind of screechy modem era of AI, but like this is where this is going. And so I hopefully you got a little bit of a preview. In terms of the skills, again, to recap, be very specific, give context, lay out your stuff, iterate, use emoji, use tables, lots of fun tips. You'll get those tips in there. And I do one other thing. Some of you asked if I do webinars for specific companies. I do that. So the way I do it with companies, like if you work for Acme or whatever, we do a class for your team. It is paid because I do CLE and I customize it to your company. And then you get the product for 30 days. And what's nice about that is like some people really like it. Like we have a user do 350 chats in a week last week, where it was like everything that they do, they are running through AI, which is like awesome, right? And then we have some people that like maybe use it once a week, but it's super critical because it's like, okay, I was preparing an email about a Rule 701 disclosure, or I was preparing our trademark filing, or whatever it is. Like people basically do find use out of it, but they adopt it in different ways. And what's nice about the trials, like you can see, oh, I like this. But my challenge to you is like, try. If you're at weekly, try to get to daily, etc. But like, it is definitely a reinforcing skill, and you'll be surprised at like, oh, wow, like, that's my hope, is like that you get those delight moments. And, we have other people too, where it's like, we had somebody tell us that they got to go surfing one morning because they could crank out an amendment to an agreement that was due. And they had some family in town unexpectedly and went. And I'm like, yeah, more surfing. I'm into that. So look, that's the goal. Super excited. It's been really fun. Let me see if there's other questions. Alessandra or Alex, anything else should focus on here? One of our company values is joy at work. And I swear, just like have joy in whatever it is you do, and you'll do it better.
I agree. It was a joy to partake in this presentation, to see you bop around and do all these different things. I mean, it was really eye-opening. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who tuned in, and thanks for the wonderful participation in the chat. I thought it was excellent. More and more stuff keeps coming every week in this world of AI and this legal tech revolution. So thank you so much, Cecilia. Thank you so much, GCAI. We got to have you back on, but you have lots of webinars. So if you're interested in learning more about AI, obviously follow Cecilia Sabrina, sign up for the free trial. There's links as well. And one person asked me how to get the chat, like the chat box chat. If you save it, it'll basically, you have to find a folder in Zoom where your chats are saved. That's where it is. You can also email Sabrina and we'll get you a copy of the chat.
Follow me on LinkedIn, join, try the product, reach out if you want something for your team. I hope you can see the passion is real and we're going to get everybody on AI. So can't wait. Awesome. Thanks so much, Shai. This is really fun.
Thank you. And thanks everybody. Happy hump day and stay warm wherever you are.